Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the BA Zones Live pre-show. It's our little tiny 3-minute pre-show. We're running a little late this evening, but tonight's show, we're going to be talking about change control and how it can improve your life and keep those clients honest. So if you know anybody out there who might find that topic interesting, please pass us along, and we'll be starting the show in 2 minutes. So make sure you have your cup of tea, your fuzzy slippers, and get yourself ready. Change control, right? Doesn't everybody wish they had just a little bit more control over change in their life? I certainly do. But most of us don't have a lot of control. But there are steps that we can put into place to kind of manage those types of things to keep us moving forward. And that's what we're going to be talking about this evening. Change control. Does anybody know the difference between change control and change management? There is a slight difference. A lot of times they're kind of lumped together. I'll just give you a couple seconds on answering that, and hope everybody's having a great week so far and had a fantastic weekend. Tell us what you're doing out there. Let us know. You can drop comments during the show, and we'll get them there. Hey, Patty Berman. Hi, good to see you. Thank you. Good to see you too. So what's going on with everybody? Adam says hi. Hi, Adam. How you doing? Welcome, everybody, for another fantastic Tuesday night. And it'll be showtime in just 1 minute. And Kathleen is behind the curtain at always doing all her technical wizardry. So what is the difference between change control and howdy, hey, Adam, you're so funny. Hope you're doing well out there. The difference between change control and change management? Nope, he's not doing okay. We'll talk later. Adam's not doing okay. That's all right. We're here to support you and make you feel a little bit better about yourself tonight.
Actually, no, I think that was the answer to your question. I'll leave you in.
Nope. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You're
the change control question. That was what he was answering.
You don't know the answer. Oh, okay. So Kathleen's like, I think it might be the answer to the change control question, and not how are you doing? Nope, not so good. So, okay. So real briefly, before we go on air, change control is really a form of change management and making sure everything progresses along smoothly. So a lot of times those words are used interchangeably. So we'll get into that during the show. So welcome, everybody. It is 8 o'clock. It is showtime. I'll try to keep my little ghost hands a little low beneath the computer tonight. And tonight we're going to be talking about change control. So welcome, everybody. And if you know anyone who might be interested in this topic, please feel free to reach out and give them our link. And please feel free to comment during the show. And during we'll try to run a little bit of set of information, and we'll try to answer any of your questions during the show. So let's get us started. I'm Marianne Morrison, introduce myself, and Kathleen Sinnott is in the back end. And Kathleen, whenever you're ready to roll that fabulous new intro, and I'll just keep my mouth shut for a minute. Here we go, folks. You like that? Was that good? Was it grooving? Had a great beat? You could dance to it? Okay, everybody, here we go. Okay, change control and keeping the client honest. So as business analysts, we put in a lot of time creating requirements and getting them signed off and approved for a particular project or an enhancement. And those enhancements are usually related to the scope of a project or the range of features and functionalities that have been pre-approved or contracted for, as is outlined sort of in a statement of work or a charter or the scope of the project, right? So yeah, we do all that. And then little by little, things start coming up. And it could come up during the requirements process. It could come up after everything's been signed up. It could come signed off. It can come up throughout the project life cycle. So what kind of things are we talking about, right? And when are they occurring? So during requirements elicitation, Um, People might come up with additional functionality or additional features, right? Developers or designers may have additional questions that we didn't think about that need to be fleshed out a little bit more. User acceptance testing. During user acceptance testing, that's the biggest one, when people actually get to have a hands-on experience. Even walking through comps or wireframes can have the same effect, where users all of a sudden, it triggers some sort of idea for new enhancements or functionality, or it may reveal things that were unknown or not communicated to us. Little tweaks or big pieces of functionality could potentially be affected, right? So there could also be external factors that occur. There could be new or changing regulations in the industry that you're in. There could be organizational changes that occur in response to a market opportunity or a market threat. There's the a potential availability of some new technologies that we weren't aware of when we started designing the system. Then there are the other factors, and these are more like people factors, right? So these are like a client trying to see what else they can squeeze in under the wire without paying additional money for it. And it does happen. And if you're a contractor, it can happen an awful lot. So that's also known as gold plating, sort of paying for the aluminum and having it gold plated later type of thing. And sometimes it's our own creative development team or the developers who think the client might like something or might need something, or the client may contact them directly, because prior to us getting involved, they may have had a direct relationship with the client. So they may put these sort of things in without any evaluation of requirements or cost or how it's going to affect anything downstream. So there's always something that could occur, and change will happen. It happens throughout life. It happens with everything, and especially during projects and the way we implement them. And again, it could come at any time during that life cycle. And so this spiral, or this sort of maelstrom of scope creep begins, right? Scope creep. So it's outside the original scope of the project. It's adding features and functionalities to a product without evaluating them for their effects on time, cost, resources, and the fact that they may put other projects in jeopardy because everything gets pushed out. So because their timeline or schedule may be pushed out, things may just sort of, it's like a domino effect, all right? So how do we keep everyone honest and moving smoothly? Well, we implement change control. So before we tell you how change control can make your life like much easier and much calmer, we'll just take a quick little break here. I just want to double check and see. Oh, John also says hi. And if there's, again, any of this show that you find helpful, if you like what you're hearing and you know someone who out there who might be interested, please let them know. Please send us hearts and love and everything. We do this for you and to help you get through whatever you need to get through. So if there are no questions, I don't see Kathleen doesn't have any questions posted up here. So let's get right into what is change control exactly. So change control is a standardized process for evaluating and prioritizing change requests, such as enhancements of existing software or new features. And it's sort of put in place to determine a change request that comes in from a client. It could be an internal client or an external client, if those change requests are actually worth doing. And for those that are worth doing, do we have enough information about them so that we can go ahead and prioritize them as a group? Understanding how a particular change may affect other interrelated projects as well as unrelated projects, and understanding the level of notification and communication that's going to be required or that needs to occur. And once we prioritize these particular change requests, we're going to thoroughly vet them out, right? We're going to evaluate them from the bottom to the top, top to the bottom, and we're going to evaluate them against what it's going to cost, how much time it's going to take, do we have the resources available to do it, and where they fit in within the grand scheme of things or the current prioritization of other projects. So if we put this particular change in place, is something else going to be pushed out further, or can we get it done within the same time frame? Can we, rob Peter to pay Paul type of thing and work it in? Can they be fitted into the current iteration or release, or do they have to be pushed out? And what other departments will be affected? Is training going to be affected? The development team will certainly be affected. Finance, is finance going to be affected? I mean, so you have to look at you have to step back and look at the individual change as it is, and then step back and look at it against the bigger picture. And it is a process that once you put it into place, it doesn't seem like it's mass mayhem on the project. It doesn't seem like people are asking you to do things and the one person asks one thing and something asks something else, and they're conflicting. It gets a little more process into place about how is this done. And it really helps clients as well. So it's all about getting everyone on the same page and having clients participate in this process of prioritization. They may have no experience with it. Bigger companies, they do this quite often. And so that's what we're going to talk about, this creating a change process and how you do that, because it will definitely help you from jumping from one requirement. You could be finishing one requirement and one feature, and all of a sudden there are 4 requests that you didn't have before that now affects the logic in the rest of your application. And it becomes very complicated and very difficult, especially after the requirements are signed off and development begins. Before that, you have a little bit of wiggle room. Okay, it's going to cost you more time as a business analyst because you're going to have to go back and rewrite some of these requirements. You may have to draft up, a second version of the requirements, or third or fourth. But once it's approved, and that's typically where all the changes seem to happen, it's just like Murphy's Law, once you get everything done and signed off, well, we found this little thing over here. That's not such a little thing. And again, you will have tons of small little change requests. If it's changing a label on something, it's not a big deal. And quite frankly, when you're doing a change request process, if you have a whole bunch of those little tiny ones, it's sort of like taking care of the low-hanging fruit. You'll bundle them together and say, yes, we can do all of this for you because they're small changes. And the client will say, oh, you're like a rock star. You can get this done. And then we have to position it as such that these are the more timely, and we need you to really help us flesh this out, because after all, it's your business. So it kind of slows the client down also on these type of change requests. And that's why it's really helpful. Again, you're getting them involved, you're getting their opinion, and you're making them feel, and as they are, that they are important to you. They are your business. So how do we go about creating this change process? So again, that change process it's a series of steps that are going to standardize how you handle the change requests from internal, external customers. In larger organizations or companies that create software on a regular basis, they may have software already in place or a process already in place to do this. But for mid-size or smaller clients, and sometimes big ones, but not too often, you can create the process yourself as the business analyst. I've done it many, many times. So the first thing you want to do is you want to create a way for the internal, external client to actually give you a request, right? They got to be able to give you one before you can handle it. So you want to have a documentation process for this. So when the client requests a change, that request is categorized and it's recorded with a unique ticket number, along with a brief summary of what the change is about and why it's needed. So as I said, this can be done with software. There's plenty of software out there to manage that. There's FogBugs or Team Foundation Server 2 that we've worked with quite often. But you can also create, if you don't have that software, you can create a simple ticketing process by creating a standard electronic change order form that can be emailed. And that can be emailed to the product manager or the project manager, or you as the business analyst. And then it can be transferred over to a change request log, which is simply an Excel spreadsheet, right? So you get the requests in. They can all be electronic. They're in the back end. And if you can get it to transfer into some type of piece of software, if not, it's just an Excel spreadsheet. And on the Excel spreadsheet, all you need is again, a unique number. It could just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, as long as it's unique for that particular request. If you have more than one application, what application is it part of? Who the client is, if it's external, who the requester is it on a particular page or functionality? Can you categorize it? Is it an enhancement, a regulatory change? Because some of these changes are going to have a higher level of priority. And when you create your form, you're going to want to create buckets so that they can check off quickly or click quickly what area it's about. Because a regulatory, something that has to be put in place right away, that's going to have a much higher level of priority than maybe a request to do a label change. So that type of category, and a brief description of the change, why the requester is doing it, and the request date. And then a column eventually for whether that particular request was approved or rejected, or, deferred because maybe they need some more information before we can even prioritize it. So 3 statuses typically work. Once you have that change request process in place, you have to have a team in place that can look at these requests as they come in. And it should be a cross-functional team for sure. If you have operations people involved, you as a BA, if there's a product manager, a project manager, in this team, depending on how many change requests you get or how often they meet, could be weekly, could be monthly. If you're an agile, you might be talking about this stuff every single day, but it's much easier to do this on a weekly or monthly basis because you're going to have to really get into the details. And it also depends on how often you're releasing new features. What is your release? How many weeks? Is it a weekly release? Is it monthly releases, quarterly releases? So you've got to plan that in advance, what the release is going to contain. And this is part of that process. So it keeps everybody on track as to, this is what's coming up. This is how we're going to address it. And you want to create this committee, this cross-functional committee, and you oftentimes want to include a representative from the client. And why do I say that? It is a learning experience for the client. Many clients think changes are very easy, and some changes can be very easy, and many of them are very, very complicated, requiring a lot of logic. If you include a client in these meetings, and when you start to evaluate each request as it comes in, you as the business analyst can say, we need to think about this, this, and this. And you're prepared ahead of time. You always want to do that. You want to look through any new requests that came in and see whether we're going to accept or reject them based on information. You want to make sure that it is part of the statement of work or contract, because clients may not understand that. When you start talking about the level of complexity of how much time it's going to take from the client, because we need to get information from them, it puts a different spin on it for them. All of a sudden, a little light bulb goes off and they go, oh, so that's going to be a lot more complicated than I originally thought. Oh, and by the way, it's going to require more resources. It's going to take more time. So they get a better understanding of why something takes as long as it does, and why we can get this 20 little items done, and why this one is going to take so much more time. So it's setting expectations. And I say it again and again because it's true. A lot of our job, 70–80% of our job, is setting expectations ahead of time so that you don't run into conflicts down the road. So also in a good reason to bring them in the past, clients may have dealt with other vendors of software. They may have been startup companies, and a lot of times startup companies, and I've been part of them, will do anything for the client to retain that business, to get a foot in the door in the industry. So they may not have dealt with a more formal vendor before. So it helps to bring them in on that. So once you get that committee set up, and typically either the product manager, it could be one of three people: product manager, project manager, or a business analyst will facilitate these. Oftentimes too, you can have an operations person be the lead. But as far as doing the tracking of everything, the business analyst is usually the go-between between IT, clients, business folks. So I like to retain that, but you certainly don't have to. So again, once you get the request in, you're going to review all the new requests that come in, and you're going to assess them. You're going to do a formal assessment process. It doesn't have to be a complicated assessment process, but some of the things you're looking for is the request even feasible at this point? Can we do it? Do we have the technology to do it? Do we have a lot of the information that's going to be required to do it? Then you want to look at the cost versus the benefits of doing it. And are there any additional costs to the client? Because if we have to increase the number of resources we're going to need because there's a time factor involved and we have to get this thing done timely, what are those additional costs to the client? And risk versus rewards. If we push this through, what is the risks that are going to occur? And I don't mean just in this project. It could be a risk right down the line across multiple projects. Versus what are the rewards? So the rewards, if it's going to be landing another giant client or something, by all means, the rewards are going to outweigh the risk, but you really have to analyze that. And then last but not least, you want to review the impact of the change. What is going to change? What project schedules are going to change? What training schedules are going to change? Is there marketing that's already been done on this? Product development already been done on this? So what is the level of the impact of the change? And that's why you want that cross-functional group determining it, because they're going to know what those risks and rewards are and what the impact is. And potential cost if you have anyone who's been dealing with the management who knows the cost of resources, et cetera. So you get this group together and you make a determination. You look at each one and you say, are we accepting it or are we rejecting it? And you're going to document the outcome. And why? Because you want a historical record of the requests that have come in, so that down the line, somebody can't say, as a BA, you really forgot to look into this. And it's like, well, no, not necessarily. We did review it as a group and everyone agreed, the 80-20 rule, everyone agrees, client included, that we weren't going to do this. It didn't make sense to do this, or we're not going to do it now. We're going to defer it to a later time, or we're going to accept it and we're going to work on it. So what do you do with the accepts? Once you have an accept, you've gone through all the new requests. Now you have the accept. Now you're going to prioritize the accepts each month or prior to each release, so that everyone knows what they're working on. You're going to take 5 or 10 or however big your release is, however big your company is, and you're going to say, this is a high priority and we're going to work on only high priorities or critical priorities. And we're going to prioritize them as such. This is a critical thing, it has to go in. This is a high level thing, it has to go in. This is a medium or moderate, and this is a low. And you could do it with numbers or the words high, moderate, low, etc. So you're going to prioritize them. You're going to determine whether it's going to be part of the next iteration that you're going to be talking about. You're going to determine the resource availability. You're going to, or you're going to defer it to another release to be determined. Sometimes we just say this is going to be a TBD. We don't know when we're going to put it in, but we want to keep it because it's a great idea. And then from there, for the items that are approved, you're obviously going to go all the way through the process. You're going to implement them. You're going to do the requirements. You're going to do the design. You're going to have QA take a look at it before development starts. Development's going to be done. QA is going to do it. You're going to have user acceptance testing. And finally, you're going to implement the change request. And once it's implemented and it's successful, you're going to close the request out. And you're going to go on to the next set of requests. So you always have something, everyone knows the next thing they're going to work on. Are there going to be some emergencies that get pushed into there? Absolutely. Absolutely, it's going to happen. But again, really assess what might have to not go in. Because sometimes we say we're going to accept it. We've already documented, we're working on it, but then put the brakes on, here comes an emergency. We can either squeeze it in or something's going to have to be pushed to the next release. Something we already approved to go in this release is going to be pushed to the next release. All of these things that we're talking about is a way to manage the chaos, right? We're just managing, change is going to happen. We're just going to manage that chaos. And once it's implemented and it's completed, do a post-mortem. A lot of times post-mortem, it sounds kind of creepy, right? A post-mortem. But it's not. So post-mortems a lot of times are done on, when something fails, like a main server or something fails. But I like to do post-mortems after every release. You get that same committee, that same group back together and say, hey, what went well with that last release or iteration? And what, could we have done differently in the future? So you're always working on the committee, or it's not just looking at requests. It's actually finding better ways to implement change, as well as not just, reviewing things and saying high, moderate, or low. So you're doing a full cycle. We have a full development life cycle. So we should have a full change request ticket cycle. And that is really helpful. I'm telling you, it will help control all of the crazy things that happen and keep you, quite frankly, sane. So if you can, where there is no change control, please, please, please try to do this. Try to get the company you're working for to do it. Take the initiative and try to form the committee yourself and do it if it doesn't exist. And if it does exist, get involved with it. As a business analyst, get involved with the change request. It will help you tremendously in even understanding how resources are assigned and the cost and all of that, so that if you ever decide to go into the management realm, you have that as an experience. So try to get involved with that. Okay, so let's take just a quick little break before we get into why all this is important, in addition to what I've already talked about. So just give everybody a hi and a how-to out there on Periscope, YouTube, and Facebook. But that's just a cut in the tape. Don't worry about that. Okay. So please, you can get us everywhere. We're all over the internet. You can find us on, as I said, YouTube, Periscope, Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. And you can always go to our website, thebazone.com. You can leave us messages and comments there. If you're too shy during the show to talk about or ask questions, please feel free to do it there. We will respond to you. And feel free to join our newsletter to get our newsletter. We don't do anything with your data. We collect minimal data, and it's just there so that we can inform you before anyone else of upcoming classes or shows, etc. And also, please send us if you have any topics that you're interested in. A lot of our show topics come directly from you, the viewers. So feel free to drop us a line there too and tell us what you want us to talk about. That's what we're here for. We're here for you. Okay, so let's just go back. Don't have any other questions? Okay, good. I just don't want to cut anybody off. But again, if I do, just go to the website and we'll respond. So just to wrap everything up, change control and why it's important. Besides controlling all the chaos, it's going to help minimize any disruption that change requests cause. It's going to help just keep everything controlled, right? It's going to keep it controlled. It's going to make sure that everyone is heard and they feel that they've had an input into the decision-making process, that team. And that team will go out and communicate to the rest of their team. You know, they're sort of representatives, right? So it's going to keep those lines of communication open. Everybody knows what's coming and what to expect. It can also avoid resource contention, where, you know, we need a developer here. Do we have to go out and hire another developer? Because the client always thinks if you hire another developer, you can get this done. Well, you know, we all know that it doesn't work that way, because they have to, there's sort of that learning phase that everybody has to go through about the particular business. So it's not about throwing resources at something. So, you know, there's going to be some resource contention, and it's a way to avoid that, to control it. You want to make sure, it helps make sure that critical requests are addressed appropriately. You know, you get a ton of requests coming in all the time. And if you don't have a team or a way to prioritize those requests, something really, really important is going to fall through the cracks. And then you might be the person falling through the cracks. So you don't want that to happen. So change control will help you do that. Again, everybody's on the same page about what is within scope, what is without scope, and the budget around what was originally contracted for. And overall, from the big picture, it will reduce costs and improve quality, so that it's not mass mayhem of requests flying in. Things aren't tested appropriately because it was thrown in at the last minute. So it's going to improve that quality and overall just reduce the cost on that, getting to the end of the night and the mouth's not keeping up with the brain anymore. So are you going to have people that are going to work around the process? Don't we always have people that are trying to work around the process? Yeah, they are going to do whatever they can to circumvent that. But again, if you have a committee and you have a team and the communication goes out to developers and everybody, that there is a process in place, and to redirect those requests through a process, believe me, developers are eventually going to thank you. QA is going to thank you. Everybody will be thanking you, including the client, because their requests are going to be addressed. They're going to be addressed in a timely manner. And there's going to be times that you are going to push back because an idea from a client or a request that came back is not doable. That's fine. Just make sure you have a reason why and an alternate option if possible, right? And that way people won't try to circumvent you. You know, you just have to give them enough communication. And that's what change control is all about, you know, making sure people understand, on the same page, and communicate everything. So we'll check one last time in with Kathleen. Thank you, everyone, for sending us all the hearts and all the love. And again, we enjoy our time with you, as we always do. And we will see you next Tuesday. And again, if you have any questions, please go to the website, thebazone.com. Drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll see you again next week. Thanks for coming by, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week. Good night.